All right, let's talk about the meta. We had a couple big events this weekend. The weekend of August 17th. I guess it's still that weekend. There's probably some events today, too. Um, and the biggest one that we saw was the 60-person tournament in Poland. And the meta breakdown is on this slide. There were 11 Sabine greens, 7 Kira greens, 5 Han 2 blues, and 4 boba yellows. Those are like the big meta players right now. You know, I think Maddie did a video, and maybe like 16 other content creators did Hantu blue videos
Yep.
this week. And then we're seeing the rise in that deck. It's very good. I played Maddie's version on Tuesday, and had a really good run at my locals. It felt really good. I think I only dropped like one game to a Sabine.
Yeah, you played the Force Bros version.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah, I played with
Another
Ray
version
over
did
Poe.
well. Spoiler
Were
at
there
Atlanta, which
only
we'll talk
two?
about.
Yeah,
Were
there
there
were.
only two Han, two greens?
Yep. Yeah, I was gonna get
That's
to that. Yeah,
wild.
there were
Yeah.
only two Han2
Sorry.
greens, and they no, you're good, and they finished first and second,
One
which is
quick point.
crazy.
Only one red ray. We're really seeing like people just move off that
Hmm.
deck, which I think is kind of I think it's like over. I think it's better than people are giving it credit for, but
Nice.
um I yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I understand why though. It doesn't beat Sabine, and the Han can beat Sabine. So like, that's the big that's the big issue for me. Is like there were 11 Sabines here, so
Yeah.
you're gonna go
It
play a deck that just loses to Sabine. You can't. Sabine's gonna dominate like our decisions for as long as she's in the meta, or the long as she's like in rotation or whatever.
Do you think that it's just the way the list ran? Because like I feel like when it had like main deck moisture farmers and like you have um Tarkin Town to like counter the ECL play, like is there like a 60 that you can have, or is it just doesn't it's not worth it? Because like the Tarkin Town is I know it's less health, but that's usually a pretty good way to combat those like Wreck or Poe ECLs.
I don't know. I was gonna play Ray at
I'll,
Gen Con, and I jammed games all morning, and I couldn't win a single one, and I had main deck
Yeah.
moisture farmers.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
say
Well.
this with the even with the blue Ray that I've been playing, which I'd say is probably even more favored than red blue Ray versus Sabine. You playing the 30-point base is almost like a non-starter. Like anything at 25, it just feels like you're never going to get there against Sabine, at least from the Ray
That's a good
perspective. And
point.
I feel like the blue version has more healing and more of a mid-rangey, like rock type deck. But I played a few games with the 25-point base, and like you just get burned on the last turn of the game, or
You just
you
never get
just
into a
never
safe
can.
spot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
with
25 is
Ray
really
Blue,
good though.
you get your vigilances online turn 3, which makes it like even a
Right.
little safer, and it's still not safe.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Those
yeah,
are good points.
but yeah, the big story of this event will be that, as Steve caught, there's only two people played the Han 2 green, and both of them made the top cut, and then they finished first and second. Same list. They were friends. I wasn't able to get the list this morning before we potted. I didn't have a lot of time to search. So
If we
I'm
get it before then, we can link it or something.
yeah. If you guys are
Yeah.
scouring Discord while we do it, there's yeah, we can probably get it up there. Uh, there's no doubt. So like I think there were 7 Kiras. 2 of them converted. I think Kira will still be a big player in the meta for sure. It's like the best
Mhm.
blue green control in my opinion. But like Han 2 is certainly in
Antu's on the
multiple
rise.
versions is on the rise. And like someone played a yellow version here, and then anytime a list goes 1-2 at an event, a big event, and like for this game, 60's big.
Yep.
Hmm.
Like people are just gonna play it. I mean, look at all the Han blue in just a week. People are gonna be all over
Right.
this Han 2 green, um, and then so like buy your Maz Kanadas now. If you traded them away because you thought they were junk, these guys played Maz Han green and went
Oh
wide.
wow.
I got a Maz over there somewhere. I was gonna grab it, but yeah, I think the Han Green is interesting. Like I think people early in the meta are like sometimes like to play it safe, and I think that when people take a risk and play something kind of not out of the box but not as seen and like do well with it, I think now we're gonna see an explosion. I think there's gonna be a lot of Han Blue and Han Green. Yeah,
Yeah, and
there's
it's
gonna be so
interesting.
much Han Blue.
It's interesting with the green because like we don't see a list yet. We've talked about it a little bit in our testing team. My 10-year-old son sent us a list like a month and a half ago. I kind of joked it off, but like being able to, and then you look at like the Sabines from like the pre-meta. Remember the Sabines that had like all one drops and stuff like that, and
Yep.
were and kind of got decimated. But with Han, you're able to actually play like good units with that, and also like now it's two sets of units. Um, when you think about like all the three drops in Sabine that are so good, well, now you can play some of them like on turn one, and they're like still really good. Like red, you play red three on turn one, and if they don't have an answer to it, now you just have an anthem that's also attacking for three, and then you're also spamming a bunch of cards. So like red three stands out. Like Poe and Wrecker are faster. Gorilla Attack Pod. There's a lot. I mean, really interested to see the list, but there's a lot of like really powerful units that you can spam. I mean, you get six Battlefield Marines. You have Battlefield Marine and Cassian that you can do. You can do the droids, R2 and 3PO, Maz. So like you can really spam. And then if you look at that compared to like, Daring Raid never really took off as like meta sort of warping removal. Like it's not Lightning Bolt in that sense. So like, early removal is like Power the Dark Side takedown in this game, and those cards are not good when your opponent's got like four units out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like a really aggressive swarm deck is like we're talking about Sabine, and I think like Green Han too is going to sort of fall in a similar role and might be able to like sort of leverage some matchups. And if it's got a good Sabine matchup, and like a good Boba matchup, it's able to like flip this sort of top three decks of the meta type thing and have advantages
Were
in
they
each.
aggro lists? Do we know anything about them? Were they aggro based?
I would imagine if they're playing Maz, which I got confirmation that they are, that they would be go wide
Yeah.
decks.
Okay.
They're trying to
Yeah.
spam guys. I know just from playing the blue version the other night, there were times when I was like, oh, my opponent only has one guy left. I'm going to kill it with whatever's on board, and then I'm going to drop three guys. And it
Right.
was crazy, like, to just drop A-Wing, Battlefield Marine Yoda, you
Mhm.
know.
hmm
It just felt insanely strong to be able to do that on
That's a
six
saucy deck.
resources.
Dropping
Wait,
all
you
three
play
of those.
how do you play A-Wing, Battlefield Marine, and Yoda? Those
Or
are like three
sorry,
colors.
not. I was just naming cards, but it's probably
Uh,
Sabine. But I, sorry, I
okay.
don't
Mike's
No,
remember
you're
Mike's
good.
broke the
exactly.
I'm
meta.
just
He's got
I
four
know that's
Four
colors.
what I
color
was
deck.
thinking. I was like, that's odd.
yeah.
That is
No, but
saucy.
so last night, that's a good point though. Like last night on late night, I took back the game from Loopy in a mirror because I was able to drop multiple guys in a turn. I did like Kanan for three, and then smuggled a Cassian, and just playing like multiple guys sometimes after you use what's on the board to kind of mop up is huge. So like the going wide and like yeah, okay, you can make an opening Maz right on your second turn, but that's all your resources, and then they just drop two more guys, and you're like, oh, okay, this is
Right.
gonna be
Right.
tough. Now
And
my
Yeah,
that's
power
what's
in the
so
dark side.
frustrating from the controls side of things, right? Like you clear the board and then your opponent plays two or three more cards, and you have to keep playing your resources, and then you've got like one removal spell for their
Hmm.
two things, and there's not a clean like sort of clean up answer. Like Avenger's way too late. Avenger probably would do it, but it's just too late. So
yeah,
um yeah, it's interesting to see this deck.
yeah. It's why blue green control really has been the predominant control list in this game, is because
Yeah, Barrage would do
you need to
that.
have
Yeah, Pyrrha
barrage.
Barrage.
Barrage
ECL,
does it,
the Death
ECL,
Reaper.
and like bigger units, but you need a
hmm
unit that trades with two things. Like you need to find two for ones, and the
Child
one for
Stand. Yeah.
one event based control decks are just not going to get there because, like you
hmm
said, there's just no cheap removal, and we don't. There's no draw. Like there's no good card draw mechanics either. We're not like finding some card that draws five in our end step. What was that instant that like gained you life and drew cards? It was like blue, white, X or
Sphinx's
whatever.
Revelation.
Yeah, there's
Thanks
no
for
Sphinx's
Revelation.
Rev
Yeah.
to like when they miss a turn, you draw five and heal five, and now you have a handful of gas. It's just like this game doesn't have that. This game barely has card draw.
Yeah.
Right, and the aggro decks have more cards because they're curving to five resources and then they're just drawing and
And then
Yep,
playing
draw
two
and then they're
cards a
just
gas.
turn.
playing two
Exactly.
cards a turn. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Bombing Run will make a comeback.
Mm.
Yep.
Never
Comeback
Comeback
happened.
joints are
implies
up.
it was ever around.
Yeah,
Well, I was
the
trying to throw
rise
you a
of
bone
bombing run.
because your high take on Bombing Run.
I was. I was also really low on Bosk, and he ended up being a beast. So When I'm wrong, I have no problem admitting it. It
No, no,
doesn't
I
happen
wasn't trying to throw
often,
shade.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
I was
when it
Bosk
trying
still
to.
has
doesn't
something to
happen,
prove, but I think he's not trash. Like he's an actual meta contender
no.
is
Yeah,
Bosk.
he's got to
Nope.
show up, but I think he can.
No, zero Bosks in this event. We had like a Gar. Anything else you want to shout out about this event? We've got a lot to look at. The top cut was a Sabine, Han, two blue, two green, two Han, two greens, two Kira greens, set one Han yellow, and a Hondo.
Which is the only Hondo player. So like
The only thing I'd say is we talked a little bit about it on one of the pods where we think about which set one heroes we thought would do better with set two and possibly set three, and we talked a little bit about Yellow Han in terms of at some point, and I'm kind of going to lump Red Han in there too. At some point, these decks are just going to be better than the rest because they do something outside the normal game state. Like
Yeah.
they allow you to ramp, they allow you to play an extra resource a turn. So to see the rise of Han 2.0, it's not super surprising, and I think it's a little bit cleaner version of Han 1.0, whereas you don't have to worry about all the resource manipulation. You can just take a couple damage and jam something out there a little quicker. But I think in general, it'll be interesting to see down the line too what type of leaders they create that do things that aren't in the normal, I want to say, rules of the game, for instance.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I
And
think
like,
that's something.
if you break down, we have Han 1, Han 2, and Boba, who all let you play with extra resources on the table. And if you go down this list, 21 out of the 60 are either Han 1, Han 2, or Boba. So, like,
Yep.
that's a third of the meta that are using sort of like resource generating leaders to navigate the meta. And then you have, like, a smaller amount of damage based guys, Cad, Vader, Palpatine, buff guys like Tarkin, Hondo, and then aggro guys like Kylo and Sabine who do extra base damage. So I think like maybe we start categorizing leaders like that, and
Yeah,
if
that's a
they
good way
do
to.
if they do make other guys that give us more resources like Han or Boba, um, I'm sure they will be good in the meta.
Yeah.
And then you
Makes
have
me
broken
wonder if
lead.
Lando will be good at some point because he does, while it's not necessarily that aspect, there is something along those lines with what he does.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would
And,
imagine.
and
I've tried to make it work. I need to get back on that train. I think there is something. I don't know if it's ever going to be better than Han, just because his body is so bad when he comes out.
Yeah.
And you can like give him a jetpack, which is sweet, but then you're not using his ability, and at that point, like, why are you playing him?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a tough push and pull about like he's not really good enough on his own, and you're not able to get enough good stuff out. But I'm sure we can make Lando work. I still think he's good. All right, then we had an Atlanta 1K where a
Oof.
couple of our subs, Mephisto and Symbiote, were giving us the goods. They finished 3-6 in the Swiss, had to play each other in the top 8. And
Team
Mephisto
kill.
won,
Hate to
and
see it.
then split in the top 4. But the top 8 of that, I think it ended up being what, 24 players? Does it say here? No, but
That
anyway,
sounds right. I think I read that.
the top 8 was a Luke 30-point green, two Han blues,
Hey,
Kira green ECL, a Kira green 30-point base, one Boba yellow that was Mephisto, a Sabine ECL, and a Vader 30-point green. Shout out Vader showing up.
Yeah. Vader and Luke. I don't know if you have the list, but one of the Hans was a 5960 of the Han list from my video. It
Oh,
was
great.
the one with the village
nice.
protectors.
Oh, nice.
So that was pretty cool. And the only card that was different was in the sideboard. He only owned 2 Crate Dragon, and I had a third in the sideboard, so he just switched it for like Force Surrender. So that was cool to see.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, this
great.
list.
Look at that,
I
and that's
mean,
our
Luke.
free content helping
That's
people
the
out.
free content, not the forced content. The Luke 30 is interesting. Um, I haven't seen Luke too much. I actually played it at Gen Con, but it's funny. I won, and then the next day, the guy played Sabine and matted up. Um,
Oh,
he
wow.
was in that
That's
picture. He was in that
wild.
picture of you guys, Matt and Mike.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah.
We saw Luke 30-point really show up towards the end of the set 1 meta, or at least for a chunk of the set 1 meta, once people figured out that like the 30-point version could actually beat Boba Green. by just
Right.
getting to the late game and being on the home one plan,
Hmm.
going higher than the Vader plan that Boba Green was doing. But I'm not quite sure how it's navigating um, the current meta. But I imagine if it's like a bunch of Boba Yellows and like I think Boba Yellow is just like a little bit on the downswing because of the Kira rise. So I think that kind of leads, um,
So
That's a good
yeah,
point.
some of these other decks to kind of rise up that
If
would otherwise
Boba
just get bounced into oblivion.
if
and that's
Boba
what I was
drops,
gonna
curve decks do better. Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say too, is like these meta conversations that we're putting out there, like they do matter, right? Because like we're seeing, Kira Green 30, that's something that like we made on a kitchen table, and then Woo's list, and you're not seeing like Iden, right? Like you're not seeing like the old stuff. Like the evolution is happening, and you're seeing the Han Blues from Gen Con. Um, so you've got the Luke Invaders that are like sort of older meta decks, but like there's these new things pop up. Like the decks that have been doing well at Gen Con are now your meta. And
Hmm.
then, what's your meta after the rise of Han Green or more Han Blue? Like what actually gets on top of that? Like what are we going to see? Maybe it's some other deck that just is, maybe it is a Tarkin Town deck because I'd imagine Tarkin Town's really good against the Han decks. Um, and just seeing like what kind of transpires. It's going to be fun. But the meta certainly does like sort of twist and turn through the weeks.
Especially like in a like there's all these factors, and I have a video coming out about deck selection. I think it's dropping this week, maybe early next week, depending on our content schedule. But it's about like taking not only like the meta, but then like what event am I playing? Like I'm playing a 24
Right.
man 1K in my local area. Well, that's gonna affect things, and navigating your deck selection based off that is gonna be different than going to a 128 man or a planetary qualifier.
The other thing I wanted to mention or ask you guys is like, how do you feel about splits? I don't know if we've ever talked about splits. These guys split in the top four. One of them had to be wrong. I kind of gave them crap. I gave Mephisto crap, and then he defended himself. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, you make the decision for you, but someone in that four was wrong.
I think it depends. Are all four in the top four KTOD members?
I don't think they were.
Then in that case, no, never split.
Yeah,
Somebody's
Mephisto's saying he had a
always
bad
wrong there.
matchup, but like if he had a bad matchup, then like why isn't his opponent
Yeah.
being like the one that says
Mm.
no? Or is it just like, well, three guys in this want to split. I don't really want to be the bad guy.
That's
Gotta
generally how
go for
I've
the
been
glory.
with like this, pops up sometimes when you'll have like a Magic local, even one that has like an invite to something but has like other prizes associated with it. It's like let's just homogenize it and split everything up and still play for like the invite or what have you. Um, I've always sort of been the guy who just sort of says, sure, that's
Whatever
fine. I
everyone
don't
else
like to be
wants.
the bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
if
like
there's
the
something
idea
else to
of
play
still
for.
playing for the invite. Yeah, like I'm okay if you do it that way, but like I, the thing that kind of stinks, right, is like, all right, like we're gonna split the top four. Everyone goes home and like two people battle it out, and I'm like, I won this 1K, and it's like,
Yeah,
well, you
that's
didn't do
different.
that.
Right.
Yeah,
And
the SCGs have turned into that where like half the people go, half the
But
people leave, and half the people play or whatever.
but the people who stay, like they're staying and they're playing.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
like
it's like
it's
other
win-win.
people
their
dropped. It
fault.
would be no
Right.
different than
Right.
if other people dropped. But like, if they didn't make it, if those people actually dropped, would other people who were just on the bubble like have played? I don't know.
You should
I think we're so
ask
starved for
Maddie that because everyone always draws to keep him out of top
you
eights.
if you know what, I'm
So
gonna I'm gonna take the other approach. I've been very I'm gonna say this: if you had played that last round and
it's
you'd beat
finally
your
coming
opponent,
out.
I would have gotten that
You
top
would have
eight
been
boost.
top eight, and I would have been probably the number one seed, right? Because if you play,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if
Yeah,
you
yeah. You should have
play,
played that. You should have played
should have
that.
played it.
But anyway,
You would have been. We
So,
might
so do
never have
we?
had this. You would have been a Magic Pro. You might have launched
Is
you.
it finally
yeah, could have launched
confirmed the
my pro
reason
career.
you drew was to keep Maddie out?
No, I
He just
didn't.
didn't want to play his
I
round.
just didn't want to play. I didn't know. Maddie told me afterwards. It
Yeah,
wasn't
he
like
didn't know. He
beforehand.
didn't know. He didn't know.
He
and
was like, "Oh, you didn't play? Like if you won, I maybe get in." And I was
Did he
like,
though?
I've been there. I
It's
think
all
either
good.
I did that to Cuenca or Cuenca did that to me in Magic like a long time ago. Um,
Wait, what was the point you brought up? Because I wanted to say something. What were we just talking about before?
we were
splitting.
just saying like the person on the bubble might want to actually play.
Yeah. So, like, listen, do what you want in your life. What we need to have. We're so starved. This is what I was gonna say. We're so starved for competitive content because the pro whatever's going to happen hasn't happened yet. You know, the PQs are coming and things will change, but like there really is like a tier list, like in, you know, I'll use like Counter Strike, right? There's like majors, and then there's like, you know, or Pokemon, there's like regionals. I mean, just a 24 1K is a great event, and the people who did well should be happy. But like that's going to be a different tier than, you know, a 200 man galactic champion or whatever the heck it is. You know what I mean? And so like we're projecting, like we want info, we want these things to matter, but like really, like there's a tier list, and if you want to split your 24 man 1K, go nuts. But you just got to understand what that really means.
All right. Well, then I wasn't gonna
Did
make.
all
I didn't make.
24 players split?
No, but did you hear about
That
this?
would be
'Cause
wild.
yeah, this is Steve. This is exactly what I was going to bring up. In LA, they had a 3K and it had 24 players, and before the event, they all agreed to split.
3K? Oh,
That's nuts.
Maybe there's
So,
more at
that's
that Atlanta
crazy.
one then.
that used to
There's no way
happen
they
a
both had
bunch. Going
24.
back to the Magic thing, like the 5Ks, like stores did right when the game started, like not declining, but like when there's just less people playing, right? Like Mike, when you and I played,
I mean,
it was like 2015, 2016. There was like just things were stacked, and then like people just started to not attend things as much.
Yeah.
And there were definitely events that you would go to that would be like 40 people for a 5K, and people would say that like we should all just split right now, and it was like, but it was a joke. It never actually happened.
Yeah, this they did. I
Not
don't know if
on.
we don't know if the store honored the 3K prize pool, because the buy-in was 50 and it was only 24 players, so that does not equal $3,000. And they said they were going to split and get 125 each. I don't know if that happened, but that's ridiculous, and I
So
wasn't going to dignify it with a slide
why are
or
you even
coverage.
playing then? You're paying
I agree.
75
Why
bucks.
why play? Right.
where do you
Or
tier
local
list?
game stores.
Where do you tier list that event? Is that a locals? Like,
Yeah, it's a
is that?
local.
Yeah, exactly.
I tier list that right under like our coffee table games.
Yeah,
with
that's like
with Justin's kids.
me and Steve
But that's like,
Winstoning is more
yeah.
competitive than that.
But that's the point I'm
Oh,
trying to make is
100.
like, you know,
That's an
there's
online
different level
platform that
of
we
Probably more
can't say the
expensive
name
too
of
by the
it.
end of the day.
All right, so one more 1K yesterday in Wisco. They did it at Misty Mountain. 41 players. This was streamed all day by Take the
cool.
Initiative. The VOD is up. I will try and think to grab the link. Also, all the lists are up for this event. I don't know if it might have some gaps, but they do have a spreadsheet with all the lists. So I will link the stream and the lists. But the top 8 was Han 1 yellow versus Han 2 blue, Sabine green over Han 2 blue, Sabine green over Kira, 30 point, and then Han 2 blue over Cad red. And the Sabine green beating Kira, that was it was one of our subs, Picardi, on the Kira Green, and I didn't watch too closely, but they were talking about that he had it and it kind of got thrown, because that should have been a really good matchup for Kira Green. I know he was pretty bummed about it, but it's a long day, and I think like
yeah.
you know it's a tournament is all day, and you can't. It's just a grind.
He had a great run.
Yeah, he had a great run, and
You
you just
can't beat yourself
made a
up over
mistake.
mistakes.
And
Yeah.
honestly, he's lucky to be able to have it on stream. If he wants to get better, he can look at it and learn from it, which is hard to do,
No,
but it's good.
and it's that pressure that Sabine puts on you too. There's not much
For
wiggle
sure.
room
You don't,
to
right.
mess up.
Exactly. You
That-
don't really
that's
get to
also-
mess around.
That's such a great point. Like, you know, your playtesting games are so different than a tournament games. Like, you're gonna feel the pressure. You're in a top 8. Like, Sabine can do that to you. Like, that's a perfect point of like, he didn't play perfectly and maybe he goofed, but like the people should point it out, right? The armchair analysts who are back home not feeling any pressure, but you also have to understand like what he was feeling in the moment and be like, okay, he goofed that, stuff happens, he can learn from it, but like that's where we're gonna leave it. We're gonna point it
Yeah,
out,
I think
and then he had a great run, and that's it.
everyone who's ever won anything is goofed. I've certainly goofed. Tom Brady tried to call 4 timeouts against the Bears. Like, there's these things that happen, but it's a great run to get there. I always say, like, when people talk about like MJ LeBron, like, oh, LeBron is, what is he, like 4-6 in the finals, and like MJ's like 6-0 in the finals, but it's like, yeah, but like LeBron's got to 10 and MJ got to 6, and MJ didn't play for 6 years in his career. He like lost to Larry Bird in the first round a bunch and lost to the Pistons a bunch and like didn't get there. So if you get to there, then you lose. That you still got there. You still won to get there rather than losing earlier.
I'm still
Yeah.
distraught you're a LeBron over. Jordan kind of guy. Like,
He's the goat.
I
Um,
never thought that would come out of your mouth.
and honestly, like the more top eights, like as you get better at these events and you start top eighting more, we've all gone through this process where like, oh, I made a bunch of top eights, but I never got there, and then you start to like make a bunch of top fours, and you start to make a bunch of finals, and then you get there. So it's progress.
Hmm.
That was like my Star Wars CCG career in a nutshell.
It's mostly
Yep.
everyone's career. Like you just
Yeah.
incrementally get better as you improve and you take things more seriously, and you just take the time to make your game tighter. Then so like you can watch all these games. The Han 2 over Sabine, it was a 3-game match. It was really good. It was really close. Definitely that third game is one to watch. I watched it last night. I don't want to spoil it for people who want to see it all. I mean, obviously you know who won, but it was pretty exciting game 3. And then so Late Night Gaming hosted the stream, but their stream died. And then Rebel Trader from Take the Initiative was casting from home, and he just picked up the
Oh,
stream
cool.
on his end and
Oh,
did it
that's
on his
cool.
channel, which was great. And he streamed the whole thing, the whole day, all 6
Long
rounds or
day.
whatever, and 5 rounds, maybe 6
That's
rounds, and then
impressive.
the top 8. Yeah, he was gonna bow
What a
out for the
beast.
top 8, but I think he was just like having too much fun, and Loopy ended up getting on there to
Good
cast
for
the
him,
top
man.
8 with him.
Yeah. Casting
fun.
is sick. Like, and props to the people who like set that up to be able to do that. Like, I think I I want to see more of that. Like, I wish that we could have more of that. I would love to cast a 1K. Like, that
I
sounds
mean,
dope.
there's
That
the
would be
Great
fun.
Stories 1K in 1 month. Did you guys sign up for
Yeah,
that, by the way? Are you
I have
doing
a
that?
golf tournament.
Oh.
No.
I have a charity
What's
golf
the date
tournament I
on
do
it?
every year that I can't get out
9/14.
of.
I can probably do that.
9/14.
Yeah, it's $50. It's a
I'm gonna put
1K.
that in my calendar now.
Yeah, we could stream it if we got a caster. Maybe we can do a home caster.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, see if Mister wants to do it.
Yeah, we'll
Mm.
we'll
Yeah,
reach
he may
out
want to
him.
play. Here is Alex's Han 2 blue. He's got Ray and Poe.
I know. I was just about to say he's a Ray and
Wow.
Po boy. And what is he so he's no tech in the main, so that's 1 card. 3. I mean, I can't knock
Fang
it. This is
Fighters
a winning
main.
list, so yeah, Fang main. Worried about, I'm assuming, your Dark Sabers and
Dark
stuff.
Saber.
Yeah, and I say this in my video, but like the cool thing about blue, red, Han and stuff is like it's so malleable. Like he wanted to hit that note of like my really big turn, 4 resource play. So he not over indexed, but he indexed more towards that. Yeah, I mean it's not what I'm playing, but I like it. I think it's got a lot of cool stuff. I'm trying to figure out what he cut that. Oh, he doesn't play make an opening. Yeah, no, but it's a good list. I
Yeah,
mean,
3 Carabas. I like the 3 Carabas. That's a card I've been kind of impressed with playing the deck. Yeah, it's more 5 drops than I would want to run because I would want that option we talked about earlier to play our Yodas, our Green Squadron A-Wings, and our Battlefield Marines all in one turn.
mhm.
But yeah, disabling Fang Fighter is interesting because you could play it for 2
On
and
the
kill
first
it
turn.
Just as
Yeah.
a spell.
just as a spell. And
Not yet.
but yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, the deck is good and
I'm
it's got an
a
insane top
Conquer
end.
Dawn boy. I think Conquer Dawn is like so hot, but that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like the big. I guess if I was trying to figure out if what I was cutting the 5 drops for, it would be the Conquer Dawn.
Yeah. But
Cool.
Only 2 pillage.
I like that he's on. Yeah, only 2 pillage, which is fine. Like I've had games where I've actually like lost to favorable matchups that I've beaten a bunch of times because I just get too many pillage and I'm like I need
Right.
units. Like this is a unit deck, so I can see I can never see going down to 1. I know some people are doing that because I think the discard is so insane into a lot of the popular stuff, but I think 2 is completely reasonable and it lets you be a curve boy more. 2 mace. I think mace is like super impressive in this deck, so I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good deck. I mean, nothing. It's
Yeah, anything.
really
So
exciting.
I guess like if I'm thinking about how like cutting this into its own video going forward, so like this weekend we saw like still a lot of Kira, not as
Right.
much Boba,
Not as
Sabine,
much.
and,
That
and,
last top 8 had 0 Boba that we
Yeah,
just saw.
Boba on the
and
count.
like 2 green, like Sabine Green showing up in all these top 8s, 11 in Poland, only 1 converted, but certainly a lot fewer Boba Yellows, more Han 2 Blues, more Kiras. What's next weekend's meta? What
I
are you
was just
playing
gonna say
next
that's a
weekend?
that's a great point. especially to make this into a clip.
Well, I think one of the things that's happening is that Boba's getting pushed out more than we thought because of these like Han Blue mid-range Kira being like big players. Where Sabine, again, it always has the ability to win because of the nature of the deck. Where like you're sitting down even against like a Boba Yellow, you're not just like conceding and saying like, oh man, I can't win this one. We saw our boy Yako from the Patreon and in the Discord like do really, really well. He went like 16-1 in games, and I think he played two Boba Yellows. Like 2-0 both of them.
I think it might have
Even
been the
though
same guy, but yeah.
even the 1K that you won, Mike, like your one loss in that whole tournament was to CJ on Sabine. Like it's always there, even into unfavorable matchups. So punishing. So like that's just like Sabine's sort of the backdrop, and then you've got these control decks pushing the Boba yellows out. So in terms of where the meta
Sabine could
goes, I
also
don't
evolve
know, but
too.
like yeah, and Sabine can evolve too,
Like
which is interesting.
we talk about the top target vigilance play being such a blowout. Like you can bring the wolf spec in the sideboard and like
Bright Hope.
wolf,
Hmm.
yeah,
Bright Hope blows that out
yep,
often.
yeah, just bounce it. So I mean, there's evolutions there. I think you guys are right. I think Sabine's got some serious staying power. But if people are moving away from Sabine and trying to play this control game, Mike, I know you're Gary getting pretty hot on a certain emperor.
Oh,
He was, he had some success early in the meta. Like he
Yeah, I'm
could come
trying to make
back.
him work again.
Yeah. So
yeah, like go on top of all the controls and then have a plan, like feel comfortable against Sabine, whether it's like just infinite life gain some way, and then you play against any leader, like you play against a Luke, you play against a Kira, you play against a Han, like you're gonna have that turn where you steal their unit, and like Palpatine against the Han decks is great because all their
yeah,
units have
they just do the
damage.
work
Right.
for
Yeah, they
you.
basically
Yep.
can't. They
Right.
have to play a fair game. The only thing they can do unfairly is like pillage you,
Hmm.
which like as Palp, you don't want to see, but really you're just ramping and hoping to draw 7 and 8 drops anyway. So
You get to draw, so
And
it's
you
like
get to
not as
draw, like
bad
you can just
because you
offset
stack your
it,
guys.
right? Because you just be one card up, and then if they pillage, they're one card down, and you're only one card down. So like, and they just use 4 resources. So I think like pillage it isn't even that good against Palp.
Yeah.
yeah,
The blue
and
palp. There you go, Mikey.
no, talk about Blue Palp first.
So the blue palp that I played at Gen Con even had like at least one main deck palps return, which I mean, you have access to that for the room, for the discard as well. So
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean I love Palp's return for sure, and like I could definitely see playing it in the main deck, and I also think the daring raid point Justin made earlier. It's just like, are we gonna start seeing daring raids? Is Red Palp
hmm
the way to go? Because like now you have this daring raid, you're drawing the extra cards. It doesn't cost you that much to burn a card when it kills
right.
something. So it'll be interesting to see the way the meta evolves from these Hantu lists. But I could definitely see the way this goes is like, oh, this is the point I wanted to make earlier. But like, the meta we saw across those 3 events is so much different than what we saw at Gen Con with like all like Idens and Palps. Like there weren't
hmm
a lot of that. And in Gen Con, I felt like all I saw were Palp.
Yeah.
Played 2 Palp all 3 days. So like, our Palp's going to come in to do this, and then the following weekend is it a Sabine weekend, and then like what is it for the start of PQs? Is it a Sabine weekend, or is it a Boba Yellow weekend, or is it a Control weekend? So
Yeah.
it'll be
It'll
interesting
be
to see.
interesting.
But I think we might see some more Palps next weekend if there are any events on the weekend of the 24th.
And some people are cool just like throwing a matchup for an event, being like, okay, if
Hmm.
the Sabines show up, you got me. But I
Oh,
think
for
all
sure.
the people I'm worried about beating are going to be on,
That's basically how
the,
we had to play Magic. It was like when I
yeah.
played Boggles, I was like, well, I hope I don't see Valakut today. If I see
Mhm.
Valakut, I'm gonna lose.
Yeah.
And then I'd see one, I would lose, and then win all the other ones.
You
Uh,
just haven't looked at the spoilers, but I'll make this point really quick. Gen Con, I thought I was gonna beat up on yellow bobas and like kind of do the thing that Wu did when I played Kira, and I played like all control decks, and it's like you can never predict. So sometimes throwing a matchup is fine. Like you just never know what you're gonna face.